1969 Dodge Charger Daytona. The 1969 Charger Daytona was born for NASCAR domination, but somewhere along the way Dodge seemed to confuse aerodynamics with aerodynamic torture device. The enormous nose cone looks like a traffic barrier welded onto a muscle car, and that massive rear wing stands so tall it could intercept low-flying birds. It's a car that screams speed while simultaneously begging for mercy from anyone forced to look at it. Sure, it shattered racing records and forced Ford to run back to the drawing board, but visually it resembles something a 10-year-old would sketch after watching too many superhero cartoons. The front end looks stretched like taffy, the proportions make absolutely no sense, and the entire car gives off the vibe of a Charger trying to cosplay as a jet plane. Functional? Absolutely. Beautiful? Not unless you find ironing boards, cheese wedges, and aerodynamic mistakes beautiful. Even Dodge fans admit that victory came at the cost of dignity. 1969 Alfa Romeo Jr. Zagato. Zagato is known for crafting beautiful Italian sculptures on wheels, but the Junior Zagato looks like they let an architect design a car using only rulers and blind optimism. The sharp angles, abrupt lines, and oddly slanted greenhouse come together like a geometry project that got out of hand. The nose sits too low, the tail sits too high, and the whole car looks like it's trying to be futuristic while simultaneously giving up halfway through. Even Alfa loyalists, who can justify almost anything in the name of Italian flair, struggle to defend this one. It drives beautifully, handles crisply, and sings through the rev range. But those virtues only make the styling more confusing. It's like meeting someone with a brilliant personality trapped inside a Halloween costume. The Junior Zagato wants to be sleek, elegant, and sporty, but somehow ends up looking like a squished Italian submarine on wheels. 1967 Matra 530. The Matra 530 tried to bring French futurism into the sports car world, and the end result looks like something a sci-fi movie rejected for being too unrealistic. It has the proportions of a car designed by aliens who only had vague descriptions of what a vehicle should look like. The front end is wide and flat like it's been pressed in a hydraulic machine. The roofline bulges upward like a surprise party hat, and the pop-up headlights seem embarrassed to be a part of the design. The tail looks like it was assembled using leftover parts, and the whole body shape feels like a confused experiment in fiberglass. Matra wanted it to be modern, practical, and groundbreaking, but visually it resembles a UFO trying to sneak into traffic and failing miserably. You can almost hear it whisper, "I belong right." No, Matra, not with that face. 1966 Lotus Europa. The Lotus Europa is an engineering marvel stuffed inside a body that looks like a melted bar of soap. It sits so low and wide that from certain angles it appears to have collapsed under its own ambition. The front fascia slopes downward awkwardly, giving it a perpetually exhausted expression, while the rear end seems like an afterthought slapped together 5 minutes before production. Lotus focused entirely on handling, fair enough because the Europa drives like a dream, but the styling suggests someone left the design in the sun too long. The wafer-thin doors, tiny windows, and oddly shaped body panels create a car that looks more like a flattened insect than a sports car. If performance could compensate for looks, the Europa would be a legend, but as it is, it remains one of the strangest visual compromises of the decade. Brilliant to drive, bizarre to behold. 1965 Renault 16. The Renault 16 was practical, clever, and ahead of its time, and it looked like a wardrobe someone added wheels to in a moment of desperation. The front end is long and awkward, the roofline resembles a cheap rooftop storage box, and the rear end seems borrowed from a mismatched car entirely. It's the automotive equivalent of wearing comfortable shoes that look like they were designed by someone who hated aesthetics. Renault fans swear by its engineering, but no amount of praise can mask the fact that the R16 looks perpetually confused. The square body, droopy stance, and odd proportions make it feel like the automotive version of a well-meaning uncle, useful, reliable, and absolutely not stylish. It's one of those cars where you admire what it does, but hope no one sees you driving it. 1964 Morris 1800. Nicknamed the Land Crab, the Morris 1800 earned that title by looking exactly like a giant crab squatting on the pavement. It's wide, heavy-looking, and oddly flat, giving it the proportions of a creature that might scuttle sideways if it had the chance. The front is blank and expressionless. The sides look like armored plates, and the overall shape feels closer to a utility bunker than a family sedan. Built with British practicality in mind, the 1800 was durable and impressively roomy, but absolutely none of that helps its design case. The tall roof, stubby tail, and droopy front fascia combine into a visual experience that feels like a punishment. If cars were animals, the Morris 1800 would be the one you avoid touching, just in case it pinches. 1963 Hillman Imp. The Hillman Imp tries so hard to be cute that it ends up looking like a cartoon character who just failed a pop quiz. Its tiny headlights give it a startled expression. The rear engine bulge makes the back look swollen, and the compact frame feels more like a toy than a car. It's perfectly capable and even fun to drive, but from the outside it resembles something that might run on AA batteries. The stubby nose, square windows, and awkward stance make it look like it's constantly bracing for bad news. You can't hate it. It's too innocent. But you also can't call it attractive, unless your definition of beauty includes slightly panicked-looking hatchbacks that seem one sneeze away from falling over. 1962 Renault 8. The Renault 8 is what happens when you build a car out of a filing cabinet. Its tall, straight sides, square windows, and awkward proportions give it the presence of a rolling metal box. The headlights are tiny and spaced too far apart, giving it a blank, confused expression, and the narrow body makes it look top-heavy even when parked. The rear engine layout only adds to the weirdness, with the car carrying its weight like a backpack it can't quite balance. The Renault 8 was dependable and practical, but looks-wise, it falls somewhere between Bureau on Wheels and vintage security scanner. It's the kind of car that makes you wonder if its designers secretly hated curves. It's 1962 Imperial. The 1962 Imperial is a glorious masterpiece of excess, wrapped in a body that looks like it couldn't decide which decade it belonged to. The freestanding headlights resemble antennas on a startled insect. The massive chrome grille looks like a mansion's fireplace, and the swooping tail fins seem to sag as if weighed down by their own enthusiasm. The whole car is enormous, overbuilt, and styled with the subtlety of a parade float. It's impressive in scale, but confusing in form, like someone tried to combine elegance and intimidation and ended up with something that looks like a Baroque battleship. The Imperial doesn't whisper luxury. It shouts it through a megaphone while wearing a feathered costume. 1961 Walsally Hornet. The Walsally Hornet is basically a Mini that tried desperately to become a luxury car and ended up looking like it borrowed the wrong outfit. The tall chrome grille gives it a snooty expression, as if it's judging you for not polishing it enough. Meanwhile, the stretched rear and awkward proportions make it look like someone pulled the Mini from both ends and hoped no one would notice. It wants to be elegant. Really, it does. But it ends up looking like a child wearing his father's oversized suit. The Hornet is charming in the way an overeager puppy is charming. But if you're looking for beauty, well, keep looking. 1961 Plymouth Fury. The 1961 Fury looks like it was designed during a fever dream. The angled headlights give it a manic glare, the sweeping body lines twist in directions that defy common sense, and the tail fins curve inward like they're trying to run away from the rest of the car. The front end alone looks like something inspired by a startled sea creature. Plymouth wanted futuristic. Instead, they got alien shapeshifter halfway through transformation. The Fury was bold, daring, and deeply confused, three qualities that make for unforgettable styling and questionable attractiveness. It's fascinating to look at, but only in the way you look at something strange and wonder, who approved this? 1961 Checker Marathon. The Checker Marathon is the automotive equivalent of a brick wall wearing hubcaps. Its blocky shape, tall stance, and flat body panels make it look like a taxi built by someone who had only ever seen drawings of cars. The front grille is plain, the sides are painfully straight, and the whole thing resembles a refrigerator with wheels. It was durable, reliable, and perfect for taxi duty, but absolutely none of those qualities translate into good looks. The Marathon has all the charm of an office supply cabinet and all the style of a municipal parking meter. You respect it, but you certainly don't admire it. 1964 Lightburn Zeta Sports. The Lightburn Zeta Sports proves that appliance manufacturers should maybe stick to appliances. Built by a company that made washing machines, the Zeta looks almost exactly like something that belongs in a laundry room. The tall body panels, tiny stance, and refrigerator door styling make it appear more like a motorized portable generator than a sports car. The face is bug-eyed. The sides look like sheet metal from a shed, and the proportions would confuse even the most creative designer. The doors open in awkward ways, the roofline feels slapped on, and the whole car has the vibe of an eager puppy drawn by a child with a ruler. Australia has produced some quirky cars, but the Zeta stands proudly as one of its most baffling attempts at sportiness. It's not ugly in a tragic way, it's ugly in a how did this happen way. 1960 Plymouth Valiant. The 1960 Valiant is one of the strangest-looking American cars ever made, with design choices that seem intentionally chaotic. The headlights sit inside bulging pods like startled eyes, the sweeping fenders flare out aggressively, and the grille appears to be frowning. Every line seems to argue with every other line. It's as if 5 different designers worked on 5 different parts and no one bothered to check if anything matched. The result is a car that is memorable, but not for the right reasons. The Valiant has character, sure, but character isn't always beautiful. Sometimes it's just weird. 1960 Marcos GT Xylon. The Marcos Xylon looks like someone built a shed, added wheels, and called it a sports car. Constructed using flat plywood panels to save weight, it has the visual appeal of a wooden shipping crate. The tall sides, tiny windows, and bizarre roofline give it a startled, uncomfortable appearance, like it's permanently caught off guard. The angular bodywork makes it look more like a science project than a vehicle, and driving one probably feels like sitting inside a wooden storage box with a steering wheel. Marcos built it for racing success, not beauty, and it shows. The Xylon isn't just the ugliest car of the 1960s. It might be one of the strangest-looking machines ever to hit the road. It's equal parts impressive and horrifying, like a brilliant idea executed with absolutely zero concern for aesthetics.